One.
Welcome everybody to 52 Living Ideas. Tonight we'll be continuing with the Analects. We'll be starting book 14. We will have one or two readings of the text, and then we'll go to Jason. We'll open it up for comments after that. We ask that you keep your comments to the text, and then we'll have more of a free-flowing discussion. We'll leave time for that at the end. So with that, would anybody like to read their version of the Analect?
Anyone not driving.
Anyone not driving. And Jason, just to be clear, what ones will we be covering? Did you put that in the chat already?
Yeah, put it in the
yes,
chat.
you did.
Let's read the 1, 2,
Okay.
3, 4. Only reason is they are all short. So.
All right. So I guess
I
that
can read the Eno.
Okay.
Is it
Do you
is
want,
it my turn?
do you want me to read
Oh,
first? Do you want me?
okay.
I'll read first. Yeah.
Okay, read first.
Zan, if I'm saying that right correctly, asked what was shameful. The master said, when good government prevails in a state, to be thinking only of salary, and when bad government prevails, to be thinking in the same way, only of salary. This is shameful. When the love of superiority, boasting, resentments, and covetousness are repressed, this may be deemed perfect virtue, the master said. This may be regarded as the achievement of what is difficult, but I do not know that it is to be deemed perfect virtue. The master said, the scholar, number 2, the master said, the scholar who cherishes the love of comfort is not fit to be deemed a scholar. Number 3, the master said, when good government prevails in a state, language may be lofty and bold, and actions the same. When bad government prevails, the actions may be lofty and bold, but the language may be with some reserve. Number 4, the master said, the virtuous will be sure to speak. Oh,
that's actually number
okay.
4.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah.
No.
Oh, that's
number 3.
No, that's so that's number 3.
Yeah, because there's a depend on what version. Okay, so there's a 2 kind. I follow my versions. So okay, so what was that? Legi. I follow Legis. Okay, so you should pick one more. Yeah.
Okay.
My mistake.
Sorry about
one
that.
more.
Oh no worries. The master said the virtuous will be sure to speak correctly, but those whose speech is good may not always be virtuous. Men of principle are sure to be bold, but those who are bold may not always be men of principle. And so I turn it over to Kwan for his translation.
Okay, so the Eno translation 14.1. Xian asked about shame. The master said that when the Tao prevails in a state, take office. To take office when the Tao does not prevail, that is shame. Overbearing, boastful, resentful. To wish to be none of these, is that Ran? The master said, it is difficult. As for Ran, I don't know. 14.2. The master said, a gentleman who is attached to the amenities of his home is not worthy of being called a gentleman. 14.3. When the Tao prevails in the state, speak as though in danger, act as though in danger. When the Tao does not prevail in the state, act as those in danger and make your speech compliant. 14.4, the master said, a man who possesses virtue always has teachings to impart. But a man with teachings to impart does not always possess virtue. The man of Ran would be valorous, but valorous men are not always Ran.
Thank you, Kwan. Joe, can you read the 14.3 one more time on your version?
Yeah, sure. The master said, when good government prevails in a state, language may be lofty and bold, and actions the same. When bad government prevails, the actions may be lofty and bold, but language may be with some reserve.
The language is faulty. Oh, okay.
Lofty, like lofty.
Lofty.
Hello,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so yeah, because that's a key difference. Then
It's a pretty big.
pretty much different. Okay, so it's this one is I group these four together. Only reason is they all short. Okay, that's it. So that's all different. But the subject there's probably no new subject in these four. Okay, so the title is Xian Wen, and the Xian, okay, traditionally Chinese always use the first two character or three, okay, as the name of the chapter. So just 1 minute. Okay, just the name for the chapter. So that means this one is Xian. Xian is a person, and his name is Yuan Si. Okay, and if you want to just make a mark on book 6, okay, he worked for Confucius in the Confucius household employee, and the Confucius want to give him 900 measure of grain, and Yuan Xian or Yuan Si said, "Oh, that's too much." And the Confucius say, "Oh no, if it's too much, you can give to your neighborhood." Okay, something like this. So it's related to the grain. And then if you pay attention on the translation, okay, so the translation Xian asks about Xian. Okay, I think this subject Xian, okay, we talked about last week. And Master said, when the state is in doubt, work for the government. When the state is not in doubt, it is shameful to work for the government. So the message is consistent in many places, right? Confucius always believed if the government is in doubt, that means the state is doing in the right way, you work for the government, okay? But if government not in the right way, okay, and you work for government, it's shameful. Okay, so you don't work for the bad government or disordered society. So it's related to grain. In Eno's translation, it translates as working in the office. And then when Joe read his translation, said working for the salary, but the actual word is here. Gu, okay, that's grain. So at that time, the salary from the government is give you grain. That's why sometimes translate as taking office, sometimes translate as having salary, a salary. Yeah. So and I translate as work for government. Okay, and then that's the difference. Some translator or some interpreter will put this two, the second part, as a different chapter. Okay, but it's the same person, as we assume the same person. Xian keep asking after talking about working for the government. Okay, he asked, when one is not criticizing, boasting, complaining, or coveting, does he opposes人? The master said, it is difficult, but I don't know whether it is 人. So same way, Confucius, if you go back to book 12, okay, Confucius talk about to control oneself and the practice according to ritual is 人, two part, right? You need to control yourself and the practice according to rituals. Okay, so when Yuan Xian or Xian asked about, he talking about only not criticizing, not boasting, not complaining, not coveting. All these things just control yourself. Okay, but only do the first part. That's why Confucius doing this is difficult, but I'm not sure whether it is right. I believe because the second part you have done that, you haven't done this. So that's Confucius' answer. So that's chapter 1. Chapter 2, the master said, a learned man who pursues a comfortable life is not worthy of being a learned man. So here we talk about learned man, shi. I think sometimes we translate as a scholar, sometimes we translate as a gentleman, and in my translation, I will consistently use the word learned man. Okay, I think we talked about this last week. Everyone who study, like today, you got a college degree, okay, you can consider yourself as a learned man or learned people, learned person. And then during that time, you can call yourself shi, and then Confucius gives shi some other than the academic standard, also give them the moral standard. So that means you must have some aspiration, some contribution to your society. If you just get a college degree to pursue a comfortable life, it's not worthy to be called a learned man. Okay, so you need to have some social responsibility if you want to take today's interpretation. Chapter 3, the master said, when the state is in doubt, speak nobly and act nobly. When the state is not in doubt, act nobly but speak carefully. Okay, so here's the word yan, wei yan, wei xin. Okay, that's why wei means dangerous. That's why Eno's translation talk about, you translate dangerous, speak dangerously or something like this, use danger, which I think that's, I would call wrong, because it doesn't mean dangerous here, because in ancient Chinese, you are talking about you stay in a very high mountain, it feels dangerous, okay? And here, wei, okay, doesn't mean dangerous, okay? It means high or lofty. So these two words put together, speak nobly, I mean in the lofty, okay, and act lofty or nobly. So that means you do your work, you say something. And then when the state is not in doubt, you act nobly, but speak carefully. Okay, so to understand this way, I find a better way to understand is when the state is in order, within doubt, you speak and act high pitch, okay? And then when the state is not in doubt, you still act high pitch, but you speak in low pitch because you want to keep quiet, don't want to cause problem, but you still do the right thing, okay? But you don't say the right thing because you may cause danger. That's my understanding, and then I think that's what Confucius meant. And then I also, because I go through the whole book, I find out book 14, it starts with Xian, okay, Yuan Xian, this person, okay. So it may very possible the whole book is compiled or recorded by Yuan Xian, okay, by this disciple. And I find out very interesting is this book always some argue against Taoism, okay. So you can put the Taoism thinking in your mind. So here, instead of Taoism, or when the state is not in order, the Taoists will just kind of recluse, right? Will become a hermit. But in Confucius' teaching, you still need to do something to help the society, but you keep quiet. I think that's what Confucius is talking about in this chapter. Last one, chapter 4. The master said, those who have virtues must have words to say. Those who have words to say don't necessarily have virtues. The Ren people must be brave, and the brave people don't necessarily have Ren. So here, Confucius put virtue and the word together, and that you must have virtue, then you can have something to say. But not everybody say keep talking, have virtue, but only the virtuous people can have something worthy to say. Okay. And the same comparison with Ren and the brave. If you are brave, if you are Ren people, you must be brave people. But bravers must be brave people. But if you are brave, it's not necessary you are a Ren people. So that's the relation put together in the Confucius. So it's a little bit long, and we put 4 together, and we'll turn to Amman. And I see David and Ralph have hands up, and we'll go to you after Amman. Yeah, thank you.
I'll be brief in consideration of other people having thoughts that they want to share. I will say thematically, I think these 4 link, and I think the link becomes obvious when you look at the idea of Ren, virtue, the better a person, whatever that version of the better person may be, is not contextual. You're not a better person because you are in the context of X or Y, because the state is in Tao or the state is out of Tao, because you are brave, because you have your virtue, you have your character, you are Ren, independent of context. But Ren has consequences that should feed into whatever context you are. So if you are in a properly Ren state or Ran state, then Ren should compel you to go be a part of it and be a beneficial part of it. If you are a Ren person and the occasion demands bravery, it should rise forth out of you. So Ren has consequences, but the context in which you exist does not determine your virtue, your Ren, or your true character. I think that's thematically what's at work between these 4. As far as the anti-Taoism sort of bent of this is fundamental to, it could be spun that way after years. I could absolutely see it, but this is as much a part of Confucius' overall concept of your duty to be pro-social. That is a fundamental duty that anyone who wants to be a functioning human being has. And according to Confucius, is to be engaged socially, be pro-social. And yes, that retreat that became vogue amongst Taoist hermits and later Buddhist hermits was really anathema to Confucians. They saw that as selling out, as copying out, as shirking your inherent moral duty as a member of the human race.
Thanks, Amman. So we will go to David.
I think Ralph has a hands up.
Yeah, Ralph, did you have your hand up? I did see that.
Well, I did. I guess it's been partially answered. Yeah, I wasn't sure when the state is in Tao. What is Tao? Does Tao have a particular meaning? I guess you're saying it's not a Taoist Tao.
Okay.
It's a Confucianist Tao.
Can I tackle this one, Jason?
Please.
So
Yeah, that's a very confusing.
Yeah, Tao is a word that just exists within the Chinese lexicon, and it simply can be translated as pathway, discourse, method, exit. In fact, if you see exit signs, you see Tao all over it in China. But it was used polemically, first by Confucians to indicate the right way something should be done. And then later by Taoists to indicate the actual or natural way in which things are occurring. And so, although it's the same word, the context or the connotation is slightly different. And the similarity I used in English is we can use a term like justice, which is fairly ambivalent, but may have very, very different meanings depending on the person who's utilizing it. Same thing with Tao.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think the translation, they translate as 邦有道. Okay, I just translate literally. That means the state is in Dao. But another way of, you will say, better way to translate is say state is in order. Okay, it's okay. Or Bang state has no Dao means the state is in disorder situation. So it doesn't take us literally Taoism Dao. That means doing in the, just like Amon said, the state is doing in the right way. So
our translation also puts Tao in as the word Tao. And I think that our resorting to some word like order is perilous. It's not dangerous, but it's perilous. Because a state in order that's a military, repressive, authoritarian state has a high degree of order. And you'd be mistaking that for this. And Tao is more like saying, are you going along the way? Wink, the way, you know, the way, the intelligent way human beings should be going. So many spiritual traditions call it the way. That's a good, you know, but even without that word, doubt, let it be a little mysterious. But okay, so we know what it means, wink. I think it means sort of wink. Anyway, what I was going to say, that was my attempt to contribute to that discussion about how hard it is with words, right? I admire you. It's hard. The first, number one, and it was interesting. I thought about, because our translation, I think, is a little dull. It says, when the government is, when good government prevails, to be thinking only of your salary, and when the bad government prevails, to be thinking in the same way only of your salary, that's all shameful. I don't think, right, it's really talking about salary, and your translations indicate it's really a little different, I think. And I'm hearing it more like this. In fact, we've had an example in the past 10 years in the United States, people working for the government, and then the government sort of became taken over. And I'm thinking, you know, not being political, but make an example, the Trump administration, there were people who felt, hey, this is not going the way. This is dangerous. And they did not give him messages, and they did not give him codes, and they didn't tell him about things that were happening, because they didn't follow the literal, don't work for the government. They stopped working for this government the way it was going. So literally, they were not working for this government within the government, although employed by it, right? You know what I'm saying? They weren't doing what the boss said, if that's the government. So I see this would totally harmonize with that if we read it a certain way. And it wasn't just the military that were doing this, or the people in the White House. There were scientists preserving the EPA databases because commands came down to say, destroy these databases, you know, and NOAA should stop watching the climate and stuff like that. So there was a broad response along these lines that when things aren't going the right way, you don't perform and you don't speak loudly about what you're doing, disrupting the commands from above, but you quietly go about doing the right thing, and you're kind of humbly enacting your virtue within your rights. That's what made sense to me as a historical current example of some of these forces. Thanks.
Thanks for the input, David. Very much appreciated. Hwan.
Those four paragraphs for me is the practical expression of paragraph 2.4 about the epistemological development, precisely because for 1, 2, and 3, we speak about Tao and Ran and Yi, okay, about justice. So you have the 3 lines of the upper trigrams, or number 4, 5, 6, and having some consequences on what you say or what you do, meaning with your intellect, your heart, and your actions. So having consequences on the lower trigram precisely, 1, 2, and 3, meaning 1, sense of perception, 2, intellect, and 3, the heart mind. So it's a very interesting way to come back to 12 chapters before, but being more centered on the practical business of government, if you want. I stop here.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I've actually found these chapters have become more practical as we've gone on. Jason.
Yeah, I just when David talked about it, on the very first one, right? Talk about when the state is in doubt and work for the government. When the state is not in doubt, it's shameful to work for the government. And I do see during the 2020, the Donald Trump tried to wreck the election, and a lot of his minister resign, right? That's kind of the example, okay, for the situation. You disagree and you think that's wrong, but you have no way, or you should, according to ritual, you should not fight against your boss. So in this situation, you should resign. Okay, I think that's one of the practice, example. This one. That's all I have to say.
But on Jason, on that point, weren't the people who stayed because they would?
That would be called shameful, right? According
No. They didn't want to give up the ability to act with the power they had for good.
Well,
when you leave the government, you're surrendering all responsibility for political action, and I think it's a higher calling to say, I will stay and do what I can, in a sense, working for the government, but not working for this governmental direction.
I got your point.
There's a that duty ethic that we often
there's no one
there's
no one answer for all. So and everyone have, but just based on this sentence. Okay, I just based on this sentence.
Hwan and Kwan.
I wanted to say two things, but David's point demands a response, which is you may be correct, but there's a little bit of antiquation in applying this in this context when you think back to Confucius' time. To be in the court of anyone in Confucius' time was to sign up for a generation of rule under this way. There wasn't going to be some transition of government in some way in the next 10, 15, 20 years. And so you were making a commitment that was most of your working life, most likely. And so when Confucius says it's shameful to be a part of that, it's because you really would be necessarily instrumental in running their agenda. There's no competing voice to turn to say, okay, they have a different way of doing this. Or so that antiquation means Confucius' point stands for his
not
time.
This very minute.
It stands for his time, but I do see your point, and I do take your point, and I think in modern context makes a lot more sense. The thing that I was originally putting my hand up for, though, was something Jason said about that sort of scholarly title, and he used the analogy of a college degree. It was something I couldn't let escape, because our 4-year completion of university is awarded a bachelor's degree. The reason it's called that was because young men who obtained that education were now fit to enter polite society and be married off. In much the same way, the status of being a shi meant you were fit for this class, this echelon of people. And so I wanted to draw attention to that parallel, because like the idea that now you can be awarded a BA and it's a technical degree that you're going to go and get a job with, and you may not have learned anything about virtue or character or development at all. You just really learned how to code very well. Confucius is making the argument that wasn't enough. The technical, education, that wasn't enough. You needed that character that was attached to the development of the process that we deemed bachelors in the West fit to be married off, and he deemed sure.
Excellent. Thank you, Hwan. We'll go to Kwan, and then
Okay, so I want to come back to the paragraph 14.4 about the man who possesses virtue always has teachings to impart, but the man with teachings to impart does not always possess virtue. And the man of run will be valorous, but valorous men are not always run. Okay, and that is at the center of the Confucian teaching, meaning that Confucianism does not promote the idea that fake it until you make it, okay, because you cannot fake it. And it's precisely 1, 2, 3 precisely, okay? The sense perception, the intellect, and the heart mind. At that level of the lower trigram, you might fake some stuff, and maybe you would be capable to convince certain people that you made it. But what is promoted within Confucianism, that is that you keep on your epistemological journey and your learning till you reach to the run qualities, meaning the upper trigram at the 5th position, and corresponding to the timeless form of goodness. And precisely that timeless form of goodness corresponds to 2 cardinal virtues, which are valor and humanity, precisely. So if you truly have that accomplishment, that achievement at the upper trigram because of your deep understanding, the cardinal virtues corresponding to Raden, humanity and valor, would manifest spontaneously and not because you fake it until you make it, okay? Because that is precisely the center of the epistemological journey, not to fake it, but rather to achieve that level of timeless form when expressed spontaneously as the corresponding cardinal virtues. And here I'm coming back also to the mythology of the Chinese ruling class. In the mythology of the Chinese ruling class, as I had the occasion to say many times in the past, is that the true gentleman having a run will attract the Xian people, meaning the worthy and the capable people who will serve him to uphold the state. So it's related to 14.1, okay? So when the Tao prevails in a state, it means essentially that at the head of the state, you have gentlemen. And because you have gentlemen, it is honorable to take office, to serve them. But if you don't have gentlemen at the head of the state, it would be shameful to serve them because you wouldn't serve xiao ren, people not having virtue, having their own, let's say, geopolitical agenda, which is not necessarily virtuous. I stop here.
thank you. I actually wanted to comment about that, like with sophistry and things along those lines. But we'll go to Mark, and then we'll. I'm sorry.
What was the term Kwan said? Sao Ran?
Xiao ren, the petty man,
small
the country
man.
of the gentleman.
Yeah, I always translate as a small man. Okay, so that's the opposite of Junzi. Okay, so that's.
Well, it sounded like Lord of the Rings. I didn't know.
Small man. That's the way I translate.
It's the
Yeah, Xiao ren was a very powerful Xiao ren.
Mark, be careful. You're on the road.
Okay, thanks, Joseph. You hear me okay?
You're a little bit. Go ahead and speak again. Let's see.
Okay, here's my question.
There we go.
How do you know when the state is in a state of doubt?
If I heard Mark right, what he said is, how do you know if the state is in a state of Tao? Is that correct, Mark?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank
Among you want to answer, or Kwan, you want to answer?
Well,
Um,
I'm bold enough and cocky enough to say that if you are a gentleman, you should know who is a gentleman. Okay, only a diamond can acknowledge another diamond. And that's part of the mythology of the Chinese ruling class.
Yeah, it's kind of a we can smell our own. But to know whether or not a state is in Tao, you know, he never really like sets that down. He says what the trappings of it would look like. People will flock there, it would be fruitful, people will be learning, etc. But there is an element of that could be a fabrication or it could be a facade. And so it is part of your duty as a junshi or a shi or a learned man to do a real in-depth investigation to recognize whether the state you are in and how it's being ran, if it is genuinely sticking to the right way. And there are some very obvious things. The right people are the ones doing the right rituals, not wrong people doing the wrong rituals, etc. They all follow them accordingly. But then there's also deeper levels than that to be looked too closely. Is somebody profiteering from this? And if so, does this house of cards just collapse on itself? So the onus is on you, dear employee, to interrogate the business ethics of your empire.
I like it, personal responsibility. So, Jason, and then
Yeah, Mark asked this question that comes with my harsh criticizing on Chinese philosophy, because we can say many. Again, that's my own personal opinion. Okay, so you can take everything good thing about Chinese philosophy, but I think Chinese philosophy, the weakest part is logic. There's no strong logic here. So for history, you can, like Mark asks, how do I know the state is in Tao? Same question, how do I know this person is a Junzi and he is a small man? So you can go to Confucius, say, okay, Junzi possess this has ren, has virtues, has this. Then it becomes a circular logic. So through the history, then they have the partition, two parties argue each other. They all call themselves Junzi, call the other side small man. And then this on and on. And then when you, just like my example, talking about when Donald Trump is refuse to acknowledge he failed, he lose the election. Some people will quit. Okay, but David said, "Oh, how about the people stay there?" Yeah, the people stay there, believe the state is in Tao. Okay, so they should work for government. But the person who quit will believe the state is not in Tao. So I think that's the situation I see for 1,000 years, because the logic is weak. Okay, I think that's my opinion.
thank you, Kwan.
I would say that you have extreme situations that it would be quite easy to have a judgment, in the sense that in certain time of certain dynasties, you have complete disorganization of the society, you have disorder, you have famines and so on, and the effectlessness of the administration to redress those problems. Okay, so I would say those are the extreme situation where the judgment is quite easy. However, if you take the medium situation, when it's not so obvious that it's completely disorganized, but it's not necessarily the apex or the glory of the empire either, I would say that it's part of the ruling class capacity to have a certain self-confidence in order to maintain that order. Because if you don't have a self-confidence in yourself and in your group, how would you be capable to administer? I'm not saying that you are not that you don't have to give practical results of your pretensions. Of course, you have to give practical results upholding your pretensions, but at the same time, the fact that you need to have a kind of basic confidence in yourself is also part of the aristocratic attitude. And I think that the Confucian school was upholding that aristocratic attitude. And once again, you have the facts, the truth, but also the real. And the real is defined by the ruling class, and it's part of their self-confidence. I stop here.
Thank you, Hwan. So we'll move on to number 6 and 7, I believe, is the next two.
5, 6, 7.
Or 5, 6, and 7. Okay. Would anybody like to read their version? I can go ahead and. All right. Okay. Would you like to read?
I can, sure.
Are you sure? I can.
Yeah. Yeah. I just have to readjust because my chapters are off. Chapter 6. Nan Kong Ko, submitting an inquiry to Confucius, said, I was skillful at archery, and Ao could move a boat along upon the land, but neither of them died a natural death. Yu and Chi personally wrought at the toils of husbandry, and they became possessors of the kingdom. The master made no reply. But when Nan Kong Kao went out, he said, a superior man indeed is this, an esteemer of virtue indeed is this. Verse 6, the master said, superior men, and yet not always virtuous, there have been, alas, but there never has been a mean man and at the same time virtuous. Chapter 7. The master said, can there be love which does not lead to strictness with its object? Can there be loyalty which does not lead to instruction of its object?
Thank you. So, Kwan, would you like to read? Was it Odisi Lao?
Okay. The Eno. So 14.5. Nan Kong Ko questioned Confucius, saying, Yi was a great archer, and Ao was a great boatman, yet neither died a natural death. On the other hand, Yu and Qi were farmers in the fields, and yet came to possess all the world. The master did not reply. After Nan Kong Ko went out, the master said, what a Junzi this man is, what fine virtue this man has. 14.6, the master said, a Junzi who is not a Ran, there are such people. There has never been a small man who is a Ran. 14.7, the master said, if you cherish them, can you not make them labor? If you are loyal to them, can you not instruct them?
Jason.
Just 1 minute. Okay, so here we deal with the person Nan Gong Kuo, right? Nan Gong Kuo. Okay, so just to remind on the book 5, it's called Nan Rong. That's the same person because Confucius said he is can get a good job when the government in order, just like previous we talked about, and avoid punishment when the government or the state is in not in order or not in Dao. Okay, so this kind of person. So Confucius married off his elder brother's daughter to him. So he is a relative to in-law, okay, to Confucius. Okay, so that's the background on this. So Nan Gong Gua asked Confucius, the archer Yi is a famous archer, okay, marksman, okay, was good at shooting, and the mighty man Ao could shake the whole ship. Okay, so I don't think Ao is a boatman; he's a powerful man. Okay, like helpless. Okay? So he can shake the whole ship. But both of them die unnatural. The sage kings, Yu and Ji, okay, they themselves farm in the field, but they possesses the world. The master didn't answer. After Nangong Guo left, the master said, he is a Junzi. He appreciates the virtues. Okay, so I think the Confucius said, I put it in the parentheses. Okay, so I think I should change this word, not the skills. So basics, the Yi has skills of shooting, and the Ao has a power of the strength, right? Nangong Gua asked this question. Confucius didn't answer but Confucius evaluate why he asked this question. Because Nangong Gua appreciate the people's virtue, like the sage king, Yu and the Ji. They do the regular thing, farming. Okay, they don't have any special skill, but they do the regular work. But turn out they become a sage king. But Yi and the Ao, they have special skills, but turn out they die unnatural. This one, I think later on we will keep talking about this, because that's very important in Confucian school. The virtue is more important than skill. And this kind of argument, it happened for 1,000 years. One important thing is during the Northern Song dynasty, Sima Guang. They have argued in the royal court. They have argued. For example, you want to hire an accountant, right? At that time, still have the test system, royal civil examination. So let's say if I want to hire an accountant, okay, financial, should I test him about the bookkeeping or I test him about the virtue? The Confucius scholars' argument is you should test on the virtues, okay, because the accounting skill, financial skill, you can learn later, but the foundation is your virtue. Okay? So I think that's becoming very important in the Confucian school teaching. And here you will see how Confucius appreciates Nangong Kuo, okay, about this one, because he during this question, Confucius didn't answer. Confucius just evaluated this person, and then she said, okay, he's a gentleman. And then he wait until Nangong Guo left, because he doesn't want to praise him in front of him, because he's much younger. Confucius married his elder brother's daughter to him, so he must be the one generation younger to Confucius. Chapter 6. The master said, some Junzi who don't possess ren, but there is never a small man who possesses ren. Okay, so that's kind of a very logical way to talk about, right? If you draw the Venn chart, you'll be understand, right? Junzi and the Xiaoren, they have two things. They have no overlap. Okay, but not all Junzi can be a Ren people. Some Junzi will be Ren people. And since Junzi and the small man has no overlap, so never have a small man who possess Ren. Okay, so if you draw the Venn chart, and you will see actually Confucius had very clear logic thinking this way. But I should say Xian, Yuan Xian had a clear logical thinking, because I find out this chapter is much more logical than others. So I believe this disciple, Yuan Xian, probably has a better logical mind than other disciples. Chapter 7, the master said, loving someone, can you not improve him? Being sincere to someone, can you not admonish him? Okay, I think the translation become very difficult, and then a lot of word here. So here, Confucius, the word used is lao. That's why a lot of translator will call it the toil, make him work, something like this. And I believe here that means make sure that person improve himself. Okay, so so I decided to translate to improve him. Okay, so make the person self-improve. Okay, and if you are sincere, right, and then sincere to someone, okay, then you have to admonish them. It's not, the other word is praise him. Okay, so so that means if you took another way is you don't spoil. If you love someone, you don't spoil that person. If you sincere to your this friend, usually talk about your friend, right? You don't just praise him. You should admonish him. That means you need to either both, for both situations, the one you love, the one you sincere to, you need to make sure that person will keep improving. Okay, that's also very important in Confucius concept, because self-improvement and yourself. And if you love a person, you sincere to this person, you want to make sure you are improving. So we are all Confucian, or we are all Confucians, right? So I always work hard, working on my translation to improve myself. And I keep talking about this. I want everybody in the Zoom meeting, improve yourself. So that's the way Confucius was. Yeah. Ama, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm
thank
glad
you.
said that.
I just wanted to point out, this doesn't, I agree, this was probably written later by Confucius' disciple, though that doesn't necessarily make it not his words or his teaching. Just this was the logical note taker in class. This was the one who had bullet points in his notebook as he took notes of everything that he thought was important that the master was saying. And that is why there is slightly a different flavor. The Analects are a compilation of everyone's class notes, and everyone took them a little different. And so it's got a different texture, a different feel in different sections. As far as this section goes, in just these 3 chapters, I feel that there's like a condensing and then expansion that happens here, where what's being asked is, what is a ren junsa? That these are 2 fundamentally all important terms in the mind of Confucius, in the teachings of Confucius. And here for the first time, we see this idea that a person could theoretically be both ren and achieve being a junsa. Conversely, there are ways you could have one to the exclusion of the other, be a junsa without ren, or have ren and never be recognized as a junsa. And so in these few chapters, when Nangong Hua is talking to Confucius, this is one of the very few occasions he makes the declarative, he is a junsa. That is something that hasn't happened much through the Analects before this, especially not for anyone alive. If ever it's kind of heaped upon somebody, it was somebody who has been dead for quite some time, so we can kind of look at them humorously and go, yep, definitely a junsa. They met all the criteria. This is the first living person, younger than Confucius, who gets that sort of accolade from him. And then we talk about junsa don't necessarily possess ren. So although this is the highest compliment that Confucius has kind of heaped upon somebody, the next chapter is saying, but we're not saying that he has obtained ren. That is something that you still have to work at. You still have to polish and grind to achieve. And that polish and grinding comes forward in the last verse, where he says, if you love someone, don't you teach them. If you are loyal and sincere and authentic with somebody, don't you admonish them? That is the proper way to show affection. And so this single compliment that is kind of like the penultimate one in the Analects, is immediately sort of mitigated with a couple more passages, and gives us at least the indication that although this was an accomplished student of Confucius, that didn't mean he was done. He still had work to do.
Juan, I'm looking forward to hearing this. Actually, thank you for that. That's something to think about. Go ahead, Juan.
I think that paragraph 14.6 is rightly very interesting, because there is a mechanical way to match the superior qualities in the upper trigram with a title within Confucianism, okay? Because once again, the upper hexagram is made by the line 4, 5, and 6 by the book, okay? I'm not saying that the answer is by the book, but there is an answer by the book. At the line 4 correspond the quality of yi, okay? The quality of justice. And theoretically, the name that is associated for the people at yi, at the line 4, are the Xian, meaning the worthy and responsible and capable people. And by the book, at line 4, 5, you have Ran, which is the timeless form of goodness. And the people having achieved that are called the Junzi, and they have the cardinal virtues of valor and humanity. And at line 6, you have the timeless form of Tao, of Zheng, the truth, and the practical cardinal virtue corresponding to that is Chu, wisdom. And the people having that level of achievement in the upper trigram by the book, once again, are called the Shengran. Okay, so here, when he say that in paragraph 14.6, that a Junzi who is not Ran, there are such people. I think that there are two possible interpretations, because Junzi can be simply understood as a nobleman. Okay, so there are certainly noblemen who did not achieve the epistemological level of valor and humanity. That's the easy answer, to play with the word, that here Junzi doesn't mean the level of epistemological accomplishment, but simply the fact that the guy is a nobleman. The other stuff that we can also say that Junzi sometimes can be used to qualify the people at the first level in the upper trigram, okay, meaning line 4. The people at Yi that usually are called Xian, to distinguish them from the Junzi, the people having attained to Ran. And here, the Junzi who is not Ran, there are such people, meaning the Junzi here is used loosely for someone that is in the upper trigram, okay? And the people at line 4 at Yi are also called Junzi. But of course, and the last line is interesting, there has never been a small man who's Ran, in the sense that the small man is the man living in the animal kingdom of line 1, 2, and 3, meaning the sense perceptions, the intellect, and the heart mind. And since he is living in the animal kingdom, he cannot be in the upper trigram, because Ran is a quality of the upper trigram, which is line 4, to be very by the book, okay? I'm not saying that we have to be by the book, but I want to say that in Confucianism, you have a very clear distinction in those epistemological steps. And if you want to go by the book, it is possible. But those lines also is to make us discuss beyond what is by the book, of course. I stop here.
Thank you very much for that, Kwan. We'll go to David.
Yeah, my comment is extremely at the surface level compared to that analysis, but let me just say that having the master speak in 6 immediately juxtaposed to 5, where he's just declared him Nanjiangku a superior man. Indeed, wow. Not in his presence, but he's declared a superior man. And then to go on and say, superior men, might even be virtuous. It could be, not always. But if he were not superior, if he were mean, it couldn't happen that he's virtuous. So the door is open that he's saying this might blossom into virtuosity, into Ren. It's not merely he's superior. He's got that potential. Putting this statement right after that is that open door. It's like a gracious thing to mention, isn't it? I just liked that he said that, or that was put in this position.
That is certainly a very interesting command that is beyond what is by the book.
How is the order of the book determined? Was there a redactor, or was this one person writing this section and put these together, or do we know?
There has been a long, let's say, between the moment when Confucius died in 479 BCE and the destruction of the Lu Principality in 249 BCE, okay? So during those 250 years, it has been revised and corrected till the end, okay? Let's not forget that it was a manual for group discussion, for preparing future statement and future administrators. So it was not something that has been cast forever. It has evolved between 479 BCE and 249 BCE. But when Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty chose in 136 BCE, Confucianism or Rujia as the state doctrine, the text became codified and did not change after 136 BCE because they became state doctrine.
Isn't that interesting how that happens? Yeah. Locked in, no longer subject to review.
Well, you have new comments on those stuff, okay? And it has, it's as a long tradition in Chinese scholarship than to have philosophical reflections on the 4 books and the 5 classics. But the 4 books and the 5 classics by themselves from 136 BCE cannot be changed anymore, but you can add more stuff above them, beyond them, and even against them. But if you are against them, you better be very skillful.
Thank you. So in the interest of time, we're going to go on to 8 and 9 because we have a goal of getting to 12, even though, quality over quantity, but still trying to keep on track. So would anybody like to read number 8 or number 9? And
just a very small point. I'm sorry I had to get logged off there, but what Jason was saying earlier about the attention to logic or more attention to logic in chapter 14, I think is interesting. In the first 4 chapters of book 14, I think Confucius or the writers are implicitly making the distinction between a conditional and a biconditional. Because just because if one thing happens and another happens, it doesn't mean that if that other thing happens, then the first thing happens. So there was a strong logical aspect there.
I think that's fairly clear with it when we're talking about the eloquent speech, but not necessarily virtuous, and or the speech that is not necessarily eloquent, but it's So I think you're right in that sense. But anyway, so shall we go on to number 7 and 8?
Want to talk about 叔子 or no?
Or 8 and 9? I'm sorry. What's that?
No, I'll let it go. I was taken by one of the notes that Jason had in there was another scholar who was commenting on 14.7, and I found the thumbnail translation I did to be compelling, but Jason and I have had a little back and forth in the text. If I butcher this, my apologies to absolutely everybody, but it says something to the effect of, to love without working too hard is the love of a bird. To be loyal without teaching is the loyalty of women for eunuchs. And Jason and I were discussing this because I mistranslated eunuch, but there's something very interesting that this commentator is pointing out, that Confucius is equating that feeling alone is not enough. There's action that must accompany your love or your loyalty. Without it, it's a very minuscule, sort of measly version of the thing. And I just love that this commentator put it in such poetic terms so long ago. As long as I'm already talking, let me go ahead and read 8 and 9, just so that we're making some progress. And if anyone wants to comment on the comment, they are welcome to. But let's see. Oh, I've got this version that is all screwed up, so bear with me. There we go. Oh, the master said, actually, I am going to read the leggy version, so my apologies. The master said, in preparing the governmental notifications, Xian first made the rough draft. Shu examined and discussed its contents. Zi Yule, the manager of foreign intercourse, then polished the style, and finally, Zi Chan and Dong Li gave it the proper elegance and finish. Verse 9. Someone asked about Zi Chan. The master said, he was a kind man. He asked about Zi Shi. The master said, that man? That man? He asked about Guan Zhong. For him, said the master, the city of Pian, with 300 families, was taken from the chief of the Bao family, who, though to the end of his life he had only coarse rice to eat, did not utter a murmuring word.
Thank you, Aman. I would like to actually go through that a little with the, well, maybe we'll see with the Bao family aspect of it. But would you like to read one?
Okay. So 14.8, the master said, in crafting diplomatic documents, Pi Cheng drafted them, Su Shu commented upon them, Envoy Zi Yu embellished them, and Zi Chan of Dongli made them beautiful. 14.9, someone asked about Zi Chan. The master said he was a generous man. They asked about Zi Si, that one. They asked about Guan Zhong. He was a man. He seized from the Bao family its domain of 300 households in Pian. And though the family head was reduced to eating greens for his meals, he lived out his years without uttering a word of resentment.
Thank you, Kwan. Jason.
Yeah, so this one has a full of name. Okay, so but basically, Confucius is talking about two important persons. One is Zi Chan. Okay, I think we talk about him. Zi Chan first. Zi Chan is kind of Confucius contemporary. He is about 30 years older than Confucius. So when Confucius, probably just like today we talk about Ronald Reagan, something like this. Okay, so this kind of time. So he talk about Zi Chan, and he's in the state of Zheng. Okay, I think before we talk about him, Confucius appreciate him. So Zi Chan, I think through the whole Analects, Confucius keep talking about him. And another one is very important. His name is Guan Zhong. Okay, so we should remember this name. Before we talk about Guan Zhong, I think in book, I put a note. book 5, no, book, Zhong. Okay, before Confucius has kind of criticized Guan Zhong, but it's interesting because Guan Zhong being considered as the legalist, okay, the early legalist. But since he has a great contribution, Confucius in general has a good word about him, and you will see this one. So please pay attention this person, Guan Zhong. So I'm going to start the translation. Chapter 7, the master said, oh no, I'm sorry. Chapter 8, the master said, the diplomatic document of the state of Zheng were drafted by Bi Sheng, okay, commented by Shi Shu, okay, edited by envoy Ziyu, and published by the prime minister Zichan, okay. So he called it the Eastern Office or Dongli because I believe the primary office is on the east side. Okay, so they call it Dongli, East Office, Zichan. So I think the significance here is Confucius also pay attention on the process, the SOP today we will call, okay, how the document, okay, the official document, diplomatic document has been created, right? They have a certain process, you drafted by someone and then commented by another person, edited by somebody, and finally polished by the prime minister. Then you go out. So I think that's Confucius is talking about the right process, and today we may say that's SOP. Okay, that's a good procedure to follow. Okay, so that's chapter 8. Chapter 9. Someone asked about Zichan. Okay, same person, right? Confucius said he benefited people, 惠人. Okay, and someone asked about Zixi. Okay, the master said, who is he? Who is he? Okay, no comment. I think Zixi, I do some check. Zixi is a minister from state of Chu, and he once want to hire Confucius, and later on he didn't. So anyway, Confucius had no comment. Okay. Then someone continued to ask about Guan Zhong. Okay, that's the person. Please pay attention on this one. The master said, he's a man. He seized 300 households of the fiefdom of Pian. I even cannot, what's the name? Yeah, Pian, okay. The Pian from the Bo family, okay. So the story is the Bo family has committed some crime, something, okay. And the punishment should be death. But Guan Zhong is legalist, okay, and the legalist have the thinking is utilitarian thinking. So instead of put Bo to death, he confiscated the family property, so give to the state, okay. And then since Bo he didn't die for his crime, so he had to eat simple food, but he has no complaints throughout his lifetime. So that's Confucius talking about Guan Zhong's contribution. Okay, the background is that somebody Bo has committed crime. That by law he should put it. He should be the death penalty. But Guan Zhong seize his property, give to the state. So in this way, you enrich, okay, increase the wealth of the state, okay, and save that person's life. So that person, okay, Bo, even have lived, eat simple food, means he lived in the poor life, in the impoverished condition, but he still has no complaint because he survived. I think that's the story of this. Among this.
Yeah, Oh, go ahead, Joe.
I was just going to see if Jason, actually, if you could give a point of clarification, because some people may not know what legalism is exactly. Okay. So
legalism actually it's make it simple. That's in the data happen in the data time. Okay, so basics is just a reward and a punishment. So Qin dynasty, they eventually united the entire China, become the first state or the central government. Basically use legalism, the concept of legalism. The thinking is that's totally opposite to Confucius thinking. Confucius all about the moral thinking. Legalism, basic thinking is all treat people as tools, right? So just like an animal, you reward, punishment, they call two handles. Okay, and the emperor, okay, the ruler should so-called 无为, okay, no action. But this kind of no action is you don't do the real job, have the law doing or use this certain kind of method doing the job to control. And their goal is all utilitarian. So all the people become the means. Okay, so the purpose of the people is make the state strong, rich. I think that's on the surface. That's the legalism. And then it's not fair to call 资产 as legalist because that time they don't have this kind of thinking. But in the data, right, people start to think about his method is kind of close to the legalist thinking. Okay, so in general, people may see, okay, not 资产, I'm sorry, Guan Zhong, okay, Guan Zhong is the early legalist, but at that time, it's not. But that's all I have to say because here.
Yeah, I just want to make that point of clarification that it was like there was there were strict laws, but it wasn't legalism because Hanfei was very much.
Yeah, but later can become a very strict, harsh law. Okay, that's put in the practice. Yeah, so but it's a complex question, but. I don't want diverse, the whole subject because today we are not. One day we can read Han Feizi, okay, as a legalist, chapter by chapter. Then we got the total. And then you want to think about legalism thinking. And when you read the Sun Tzu, the other word, it's kind of close to the legalism thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that kind of sets the foundation. Oh no, I have no problem digressing on a tangent about legalism and Han Feizi in particular because he's an interesting character. Robert Jur is what just came to mind. The basic idea, you can make punishments bad enough that even a compulsive criminal can't do the crime, won't pick up gold if it's molten on the ground. That makes it untenable, and so punishment can be likewise untenable. But I'm not going to talk very much about chapter 9 because it's a bit in the weeds, dealing with the Bull family and dealing with its connections to legalism. I do want to talk about that standard operating procedure of chapter 8 because I think there's something very interesting at work subtextually in his sort of laying out the official proper standard operating procedure. And that is, the documents pass through the hand of Xian and then Shu and then Ziyu and finally into Zichan. You got 4 different ministers here, 4 different people involved in producing one article. And the subtextual comment is, and it came out perfect every time. Look how harmoniously these 4 learned men could operate together. There's a couple of things that fascinate me about this. One is that it's subtextually communicating the idea of what in a harmonious government, in what Mark was asking, how do you know if it's got Tao? If it's really following the Tao and it's with the Tao, then this sort of procedure should just be smooth as silk. It should just happen naturally because all parts are pulling together in the same direction. It reminds me of my personal bitter hatred for style guides. And when someone finally explained to me, you got to have a style guide, because if you have 12 different writers writing for the same magazine and each of them want to do it their own little way, then eventually the whole thing starts to look like a jumbled mess. So we all do it this way, and we have this big tome guide that says this is how you will make a citation, this is when you use italics, this is when you don't. And it seems painfully ritualistic, which I think Confucius would love, but he's indicating the same kind of result by the natural harmony of a few ministers in the government, as opposed to some formalized lore that says this is how you will go about doing these things. And they each improved upon each other, sort of effortlessly and without resentment. And so I find that chapter 8 very interesting, because on the one hand, it's an argument for his li, it's an argument for ritualism, it's an argument for the harmony and the ren that these 4 different individuals seem to have been indicated to hold for one another.
Thank you, Hwan. We'll go to Kwan.
I want to come back a little bit to the distinction between Confucianism and legalism. Legalism, as Jason said quite rightly, is that people are treated like animals, like you have a punishment and you have rewards, meaning that legalism believe in the lower trigram, okay, in the sense perception, in the intellect, in the heart mind, meaning that since legalism either doesn't attribute to the common people the capacity to go to the upper trigram, where you have the timeless form of beauty, goodness, and truth, or they simply don't believe in the existence of the upper trigram. So if you deny the capacity to go to the upper trigram for most people, or you don't simply believe in it, it is absolutely logical that the only way to ruin a state is by punishments and rewards. On the other hand, Confucianism believe in the upper trigram, meaning the timeless form of beauty, goodness, and truth as translated in human behavior as wisdom, justice, humanity, and valor. So it's not only a question of efficiency, it's a metaphysical question. If you are a realist, in the sense that do you believe in the reality of the upper trigram, or you don't believe in the reality of the upper trigram. Even if they were Confucian gentlemen who would suggest what I would call small legalist programs for certain specific tasks, but the legalists who were the advisors of the first emperor were, I would call, the metaphysical legalists, meaning that they don't believe too much in the upper trigram. And it has been a long dialogue within Chinese civilization between those who believe in the reality of the upper trigram and those who don't believe in the reality of the upper trigram, or who would deny the capacity to go to the upper trigram to most people. I stop here.
And just for clarity for that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Hwan, essentially is that you're believing that humanity is actually inherently bad or good in certain cases.
Yes, and there is an exception. There's a guy of the 3rd century BCE named Sun Tzu, who was a Confucianist, who believed in the upper trigram, but he still believed that man is fundamentally bad, or maybe there is a nuance in his thinking. Maybe he believed that most men are not capable to go to the upper trigram. So for practical reasons, it's better to implement legalist principles to rule most people. But for the aristocracy, it's still possible to promote the reality of the upper trigram. he is truly an exception within the Confucianist endeavor, because all Confucianists believe in the reality of the upper trigram, meaning the timeless form of beauty, goodness, and truth, translated as the four cardinal virtue of justice, valor, humanity, and wisdom.
Thank you, Guan. Does anybody else have any comments about these two? If not, we can get to the final few, but go ahead.
I'll make one quick comment about Sun Tzu, who, as Kwan pointed out, was a Confucian who said people are rotten. Just basically people are rotten and they require, but his solution was the same as Confucius. They still require teaching, polishing, grinding to work the rotten out of them. I'll also point out that he was one of the rare Confucians in the early centuries to be gainfully employed in the court of other ministers. And so his opinion may have been shaped by environment.
Okay, I'm going to defend for Xunzi for something. Because first, he is not exception, I will say. The reason is we say it's exception because we take 2,000 years example. We look back because all our Confucian mentions his follower. So his voice become, unheard. And that's one of the reasons. And second, his idea of human nature is bad because he want to focus on ritual. So use ritual and education to correct people. So what he focus is education, learning. I think that's his purpose. The true reason I like him a lot is just personal favor, because his writing is very logically structured, okay, like an essay. Okay, so I enjoy reading his writing. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. I don't see any other hands up or anybody else wish to comment.
If 10,
not, we'll get
10, 11, and 12. Okay, be careful. It's full of names. So anyone want to practice, that's a good good way to practice pronounce Chinese name.
I mean, I'm willing to practice. Yeah, I'll give it a shot. I mean, but it's yeah, okay. It is practice. So 10, 11, and 12, right?
Yeah.
The master said to be poor without murmuring is difficult. To be rich without being proud is easy. Number 11, master said, Mi Gong Chu is more than fit to be chief officer in the families of Zhao and Wei, but he is not fit to be great officer to either of the states Tang or Zhu. Those are complete guesses. Zulu. I do know him. Asked what constituted a complete man. The master said, suppose a man with the knowledge of Zhang Zhong, the freedom from covetousness of Gong Chu, the bravery of Zhuang of Bian, and the very talents of Ran Hui. And to these, the accomplishments of the rules of property and music, such a one might be reckoned a complete man. He then added, but what is the necessity for a complete man of the present day to have all these things? The man who in the view of gain thinks of righteousness, who in the view of danger is prepared to give up his life, and who does not forget an old agreement, however far back it extends, such a man may be reckoned a complete man. All right, that was interesting. with my pronunciations there. Okay.
Okay,
The
so I
Kwan-
read Eno.
So
I read
you can go, you can read the right names.
Okay, so here is the translation by Robert Eno, 14.10. The master said that to be poor and without resentment is hard. To be wealthy and without arrogance is easy. 14.11. The master said, is Meng Gong Chuo served as an elder at the courts of the Zhao and Wei families, he would be excellent, but he is unfit to be a grandee at court in the states of Tang and Shui. 14.12. Zulu asked about the complete man. The master said, if he were as wise as Zhang Wuzhong, as free from desire as Gong Chuo, as valorous as Zhuangzi of Pian, as accomplished in the arts at Ranqiu, and patterned with Li and music besides, then he may be called a complete man. He added, but for someone to be deemed a complete man nowadays, what need does he have for all this? If seeing profit, his thoughts turn to what is right, and seeing danger, is ready to risk his life, and if he can long endure hardship without forgetting the teachings that have guided his ordinary life, he may indeed be deemed a complete man.
Thank you, Kwan, and
Did you
thank
say
you.
prophet?
Yeah, what's your comment?
Okay. I was just asking if he used the word profit instead of gain. That's what I was thinking. Anyway, that's no big deal. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, chapter 10. Okay, I think chapter 10 is easy, right? So the master said it is difficult not to complain when one is poor. It is relatively easy not to take pride in themselves when one gets rich. So in a way, Confucius never asked people to be poor, right? He pursuing wealth is not a problem, but you need in the right way. And when you are rich, you should not be too proud. And he talked about when you are rich, you should love riches. Okay, he is very practical. Riches need money, right? You need to do ceremony. You need money. So when you are rich, okay, you pursue, you love riches. That's good. Okay, so that's Confucius teaching. If you can think about it's different than what Jesus is teaching. Okay, so that's kind of a little bit opposite here. Chapter 11, the master said, Meng Gongchuo is good at being an elder for the powerful household like Wei or Zhao, but not good at being a minister for a tiny state like Teng or Xue. Okay, so a lot of names here. Okay, first you see Meng. Okay, remember there were three powerful family in the state of Lu. Okay, Ji family, Fu family, and the Meng family. So Ji family is the most powerful one, and Confucius hate them. For every time Confucius you see with Ji, that always Confucius have a problem with them. And the Meng family, Confucius is the favorite, okay, because Confucius has tutored, okay, two of their prince, the people. So Confucius always has a much better word for Meng family, but a harsh word for Ji family. So that's why here. And this one is very interesting. Confucius talking about Meng Gong Chuo. And he is a person who is kind of like have a high virtue, but not probably doesn't have the strong administrative skill. That's why he can be an elder, symbolic position for the powerful household, powerful state. During that time, still a household. Wei and Zhao, which belong to the state of Jin, the most powerful state, but not good being a minister, which require the administrative skills, even for very small state like Teng and Xue. Okay, that's Confucius' comment on 孟公错. Chapter 12. Zilu asks what an ideal man is. Okay, so here 成人, okay, and another translation translates a complete man. I think this one Confucius give a concept of ideal man. Okay, so different than 君子, different than 人. Okay, so Confucius try to give a definition of ideal man. I think the ideal man is more practical, okay, than 君子. Okay, so that's my, and unfortunately, that's the only chapter, only place in the whole Analect Confucius talking about the concept of ideal man. So the master said, Zilu asked about this ideal man, and we know Zilu is more practical than other disciples. And again, you probably can tell the tone, the conversation between Confucius and Zilu. The tone is a little bit different, usually more like friend, okay, more friendly conversation. So the master said, he who is as wise as, hold on, I have to read the Chinese, otherwise it's difficult to pronounce it. Okay, so just 1 minute. All right. The master said, he who is as wise as Zhang Wuzong, okay, as desireless as Gong Chuo, as brave as Bian Zhuang, as skillful as Ran Qiu, and cultivated with rituals and the music, can be an ideal man. The master later said, as an ideal man of today, why shall he be so? He can be an ideal man if he ponders what is right when seeking profit, ponders what is his duty when seeing dangers, and never forget his words of promise or aspiration after long enduring hardship. So Confucius always give the best situation. He has all the benefit, right, from the Zhang Wuzhong's wisdom of Zhang Wuzhong, the desireless as Gong Chuo, the bravery as Bian Zhuang, the skillfulness as Ran Qiu, okay, and then a ritual and the musical. They become ideal man, very idealistic. Then he talked about, okay, but you know, in today, okay, my assumption is I don't have a very high standard. As long as you don't forget about what's righteousness, okay, when you seeking profit and during the danger, you never forget what's your duty, and then you can be called an ideal man. And that's kind of the tone Confucius used when he talked to Zilu. So that's all I need to say, and then I'm up, please. Oh, I'm on left.
Yeah, he said in the notes in the chat.
Okay, all right. So so any other comment for this long chapter?
Well, it's fascinating that we've been talking about the Jinzu for so long and all of the virtues, and now we're learning that there isn't any one person that has all of these. It's something which is a kind of ideal that's made up of made up from the characters of different people. Thank you.
That's interesting. I think that's why back to my original comment about this chapter. I think it's the writer, okay, the author of this chapter is kind of have a logical mind. So you see a lot of things he talking about. If you have A, you must have B, but you have B, it not necessarily have A, right? And he like to talk about the ideal situation. You have the this guy's the virtual, the smartness of this guy, the bravery of this guy, the skillfulness of this guy, and all add up is ideal. So I think by seeing this, it's interesting. Yeah. So Joe, you have no voice. Okay, Joe lost his voice, and then we'll let Joe fix the problem.
Now, can you hear?
Yeah, okay.
Can you hear me now? Oh,
Yeah.
all right. I thought it was actually, I was wondering, I was talking a while ago and I was like, this is interesting because it did, nobody was
Nobody listened to
responding. Yeah, exactly. Which, would have been okay. But just to, just actually to go off of what Mark was saying, I think that I believe it was chapter 11 where he goes through each one of his students and he notes what they're good at and what they are not good at, and actually talks about what one of them is good at finances. One of them, he says, needs to work a little bit harder at school. And so he goes through each one and noting their shortcomings, that there's this that everybody has something to work on. So it's interesting to hear about when this idea of the complete man comes up, because it's almost like an ideal sage, is what I'm kind of thinking in that sense. Somebody that demonstrates all the virtues of the upper triagram, as Kwan would has referred to. Somebody that's righteous, brave, and does everything that this was called for his position. I also, I think that there was some. I'm looking at some notes here. Sorry, I stepped away for a moment. Oh, Jason, go ahead. Actually,
Yeah, I think I need to make some clarification here. Okay, I think that when Joe, you talk about this chapter 12 compared to in the I forget which chapter, but it's in the book 11, right? Talk about each.
I believe it's 11.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we should not put them together. Okay, for two reasons. The people all mentioned in this book, book 14, they are except Ran Qiu. Okay, but the rest are not Confucius' disciple. So Confucius just use them as example. Okay, so you can use if ideal man in today, you will say you have the wealth of Bill Gates, the handsomeness of Tom Cruise. You have the muscle like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Okay, all add up together. So I think he used the celebrity, okay, as the example to show, okay, not the like a disciple. He say, oh, he's handsome, he's smart, he's good in finance, that's he good in math, he's good in art. That's kind of his disciple. I think that's the difference. Except the Ran Qiu is his disciple, but again, Ran Qiu is the person is very skillful, okay, person in finance, okay, and so that's number one I like to make clear. Number two, if we look at this ideal man, I don't think we should. It's different than the concept of 君子, because if you look at all these so-called virtues, this kind of virtue is more like a skill. Okay, the practical virtue, not moral kind of thing. So first you talk about the wise, right? As wise as Zhang Wuzhong, okay. This wise, okay, is kind of like knowledge, this kind of wise or smartness. You can outsmart other people, okay. This kind of smart, okay. And Bian Zhuang is a powerful, a powerful man, okay. I should not say powerful, a strong man, okay. Have a lot of strength, okay. This kind of Hercules, this kind of person. Talk about Ran Qiu. Ran Qiu is good in the administration, okay, manage the money, okay. So he put about this one is a skill, less on the moral, okay, more on the skillful, okay. So I think that's the difference. And I would say the so-called complete man or ideal man has much less virtual meaning, okay, in this one. And that's why later on, Confucius said, okay, for today's ideal man, you don't have to be like this. He kind of add some virtual meaning on that. The minimum virtual meaning is that he talk about when you seeking profit, okay, don't forget about the righteousness. When you are in danger, don't forget about your duty. That's kind of the minimum moral standard on that. So again, that's very Confucius style, right? When you talk about ideal man, which is not much moral sense, but he want to add a little bit moral requirement on that, just like the beginning when you talk about the learned man. Okay, so yeah, I will stop here, and if you have thing to discussion, and then we will continue next week. And I need to leave in a few minutes, you know. And anyway, thank you everyone, and then that's we are doing book 14. Okay, so next week we'll continue. Thank you.
So are there any questions for Jason before he leaves, or any comments?
Again, thank
Are
you
there
very
any
much.
comments?
A lot of effort goes into